Coming up on Reel to Reel, we'll travel to Arlington Cemetery in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, to unearth a unique form of art which people are dying to see. Father Al Maslock will join us with his second thoughts on parish visitation, and in this week's checkup, Dr. Kelly will tell us about the disease known as the silent killer. It's all next, right here on Reel to Reel.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Paul Perillo.
And I'm Pat Shelton. Welcome to Reel to Reel. Later in today's show, you'll meet an extraordinary 88-year-old religious sister who, when most octogenarians have difficulty walking, she is an exceptional working artist.
Father Al Maslock will also be along with a humorous look at the annual parish block collection, and Dr. John Kelly will be along with his checkup series tonight on hypertension.
Our first feature tonight is entitled A Dying Art. It's a play on words describing a unique form of art called mourning art. That's M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, mourning art. Let's watch.
Since the beginning of time, the concept of death and the mystery of the afterlife have been a widespread concern of civilizations all over the world. One idea which was prevalent, however, in all cultures was the underlying premise that the purpose of one's life was to prepare for one's death.
People spent their entire lives preparing to die because religious principles, both Catholic and Protestant, felt that life couldn't go on until you prepared early to die well. You had to know what kinds of prayers you might say, even as a 2-year-old child. You might want to know what moral judgments to make and what religious practices to follow in order to prepare yourself for the life hereafter.
There is no denying that in today's society, death is looked upon as both a morbid and grim subject, which is seldom discussed in most circles. But from medieval times up to the 18th century, the subject of death was very much alive and at the forefront of conversation.
There was so much death. There was so much infant mortality, so many plagues and diseases. There were no police forces in the early days. Everyone was in a much more barbaric state, so that life and death were very close to the surface of everything one did, practically and also spiritually.
Death was so much a part of life in centuries past that the subject gave birth to a new type of art.
Mourning art is a either literary or visual form of art that captures an individual's history, a group's history, a church's history, a nation's history.
The country's first museum dedicated entirely to the subject of death, funerals, and burials opened its doors recently. And in what more appropriate spot than, you guessed it, a cemetery. Located on the grounds of the 170-acre non-denominational Arlington Cemetery in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, the museum is housed in a building which is patterned after Washington's Virginia estate, Mount Vernon, and people are dying to see it. Although the concept of mourning art can trace its roots back to the ancient Egyptians and early Christians, the idea first became popular in this country with the death of George Washington, America's first national hero.
It became popular, not just something for a small group and an elect or elite sort of group. It became popular in America with the death of George Washington. George Washington was America's first hero, and they needed desperately to remember an important and vital creature such as Washington.
Although the museum houses a collection of art devoted to Washington, including a mourning ring adorned with a piece of his hair, the majority of the items in the museum are dedicated to the history and development of this unique form of art. One of the most well-known images in the museum is a 16th century replica of an Albrecht Dürer engraving, Melancholia I, which is famous for its combination of symbols, all of which have become standards in mourning art. Images, such as those contained in Melancholia, were meant to both frighten and teach the living how to live well, in order that they might also die well. Books dealing with the subject of death were also quite popular and contained not only written material, but symbols which even the illiterate could understand. Death was undeniably an obsession. The deliverance of one's soul became so important that people began to leave money in their wills for elaborate funerals, which often included paid mourners. Because one was never sure whose prayers God would answer, individuals from all social classes were invited, and many of them were clothed in mourning attire, purchased with funds designated in the will for just that purpose. Funeral processions often became events for the entire town, with mourners following the funeral coach, on the side of which hung a diamond-shaped coat of arms known as a hatchment.
A hatchment is a diamond-shaped wooden board painted with a coat of arms on it. That coat of arms is a piece of history describing in emblematic form the background of the person who died, his mother, his father, his place in his society, and his place in history, his relationship to other people. Usually these were men of nobility or women, and the colors on the hatchment depended on whether you were male or female. Female was white, the male was black, and all of the little designs related to your family history. That hatchment, painted on board, was at first hung on the front of your door, stating to everyone who came by that there had been a funeral or that there had been a death and that the people were mourning.
Another art form, which became extremely popular in the 17th and 18th centuries, was that of mourning jewelry. Crafted with funds bequeathed in a will for strictly their creation, mourning rings were often gold enamel bands which bore the names or initials of the deceased, as well as the date and age at death. Presented only to important mourners who had been stipulated in the deceased's will, the rings continued to increase in popularity, and by the 19th century, the art grew to include brooches and pins, which sometimes contained a piece of the decedent's hair. Needlework bearing the name of the deceased person also became popular, and most renderings were either painted or stitched on silk and velvet backgrounds. Several images, such as the figure of a woman with head in hand, a stone urn, and a weeping willow, were quite common in most works of the time. While some individuals will continue to scoff at the idea of a museum dedicated entirely to the preservation of mourning art, the collection undoubtedly provides a valuable link to past generations and their ideas concerning death. Although our thoughts on the subject differ a great deal from those of our ancestors, there is certainly no denying that these people seem to have the right idea about death. They accepted it, faced it, and prepared for it, and in acknowledging the inevitability of death, freed themselves to enjoy the business of living.
Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Oh, that was fun.
Sure was. And I like the pun about people are just dying to get in.
Yeah, the writer had a ball with this material. Well?
Coming up, Father Al Masluck is here with Second Thoughts, and perhaps nowhere better than here do we learn that timing is everything, especially when it comes to the annual parish block collections. Here to explain is Father Masluck.
Visiting his people is an important part of any priest's work. Some creative parishes, they just visit a few families a week. They spread them out over the course of a year. But other parishes use an old, tried and true tradition in many dioceses. Yes, you know what I'm talking about, the parish visitation and block collection. Ah, yes, the parish visitation and block collection, where a priest and parishioner can sit down and relax and enjoy each other's company and get to know each other in a very meaningful and deep and personal way at the rather brisk rate of 10 to 12 houses an hour. Here's how it works in too many parishes. Okay, Mary, let's see how many houses I got to visit today.
Not too many today, Father.
Now, the key to the visit is timing. See, most parishes, they visit in the afternoon when, of course, most people are at home. Jeez, I'm getting too old for this. 102 houses, 98 people aren't even home. But all their dogs are home. The dogs know how to open the door. Well, most people are home, except the kids who are in school, and a lot of moms who have to work, and the senior citizens who are probably out on a trip or at a meeting at the church. Right, this is the one. This is the one someone's home. This is the one for a kind word, right? What did I do? Why? Why? Well, try again. Let's try next door. Now, just on a slight possibility that we miss some of our people, someone whose name is lost in the pages of antiquity invented this beautiful personalized card. Dear blank, sorry you weren't home when I visited you on blank. If you need to talk to a priest, please call the rectory. Sincerely, Father Blank. Hallmark couldn't have done better. Now, once in a while, you do catch someone home. Now, as I said, once in a while you do catch someone home, you do get a chance to visit, and at those times, the priest has to be very careful to pick up those subtle little signs that maybe the practice of the faith isn't everything the couple wants you to think it is.
So, Father, are you new here at St. Andrews?
That's Ambrose, not Andrews.
Oh, St. Ambrose.
No, I've been here about a year now.
Oh, you must say a different Mass than the one we go to.
Well, actually, we rotate through the schedule. Which Mass do you go to?
The 10, we go to the 10.
Well, we have a 9:30 and we have an 11.
Oh, it's the 9:30 we go to.
Well, I'm glad to see that you enjoy going to the Spanish Mass, Mrs. McGillicuddy.
Oh, see.
So you do frequent the sacraments?
We go to confession regularly. What's his name, Jerry? Father Hughes.
I don't have the heart to tell them Father Hughes died in 1952. Oscar contender? Now, seriously, it really is a joy to visit people in their homes. There's no better way to meet them and learn about them. I just don't understand why some parishes insist we visit every parishioner every year. Why not visit 2 or 3 a week, even if it takes 4 or 5 years? For second thoughts, I'm Father Al Maslock.
Oh, I think I want to start a fan club. I want to be president of the Father Al Maslock fan club. If you enjoyed that vignette, then why don't you show it by welcoming your parish visitor? And why don't you stay tuned for the second half of Reel to Reel. It's all right.
There is a mighty spirit shining out.
In Salisbury, Maryland, the hungry are being fed. In Wind Falls, Indiana, a man who learned to read at 47 is making sure others learn earlier. In Hope, New Mexico, people turned an abandoned school into a thriving community center. In Boston, Massachusetts, neighbors set up a crime hotline that's making their streets safer. From Seattle to Galveston, from Buffalo to Fargo, every day, someone in America is doing something to light up another life. But there is so much more to do. The light to do it is within us all. We only need to share it. Contact the Points of Light Foundation. Do something good. Feel something real.
Pete Sampras comes up to serve. Jan Stevenson makes the drive. A.C. Green and Charles Smith pound the boards. Marcus Allen rushes up the middle. Jay Schrader with the touchdown. There are a lot of different parts to play in the American Red Cross. Play your part.
Time now for our checkup feature with Dr. John Kelly. This week's topic, the silent killer.
High blood pressure, or hypertension, has been called the silent killer, and for good reason. This usually asymptomatic condition is associated with the risk of stroke, heart attack, and heart failure. If left untreated, it can lead to kidney failure and visual disturbances. Over 95% of patients are classified as having primary hypertension, for which there is no known cause. The remaining 5% are described as having secondary hypertension, or one which has a clearly identifiable cause. Hypertension is present when blood pressures are consistently above 140/90. This is usually determined by taking the average of a series of readings over a period of time, since one reading could be high due to stress. In fact, for many patients, the stress of even going to the doctors can produce an elevated reading. If possible, have someone else take your blood pressure, and if you have a large arm, a special size cuff may be needed to prevent a falsely high reading. Even if you do have high blood pressure, there are many steps you can take without resorting to medication. Restrict salt intake. By reducing the amount of salt you consume, you can help control water retention, which causes the heart to work harder and consequently raises pressure. If you've put on a few extra pounds lately, try to watch what you eat. Losing weight helps decrease the workload on your heart. Eat a healthful diet, which is low in fat and includes fiber, which can be very helpful to the body. Exercise regularly. Any type of aerobic activity, such as walking or biking, can help lower blood pressure and prevent hypertension in the first place. Restrict alcohol. Studies indicate that chronic alcohol ingestion can cause weight gain, which puts stress on the heart, raising blood pressure. Try to control stress. Studies have shown that individuals with high-stress jobs may be 3 times likely to have hypertension. Meditation and muscle relaxation can both be an effective means to reducing stress. Remember that even if you require medication to control your high blood pressure, you can use these suggestions to help enhance its effects and hopefully decrease your dosage. Good luck. For Checkup, I'm Dr. John Kelly.
Thanks, Doctor. And of course, Dr. Kelly will be along on future editions of Reel to Reel with other medical news that you can use. And of course, hypertension is not to be taken lightly. If you suffer from high blood pressure, you should have it checked out, first of all, and then be medically treated for it. Well, in keeping with our artsy, if you will, motif for this show, at 88 years young, a sister inspired by faith puts paint to canvas and hammer and chisel to wood, and in turn inspires others.
Her name is Sister Helena Steffens Meyer, and for over 70 years she has expressed her love of God, creation, and life through art. The powerful and spontaneous style of her work has earned Sister Helena international acclaim among some of the world's most prestigious art circles. Now 88 years old, Sister Helena works out of the studio located within a Milwaukee-based Franciscan convent. Her bold approach to art is one that couples aesthetic inspiration with deep spiritual involvement.
Well, art is a language. It's an expression. Fra Angelica said it's the most intimate expression of your most intimate life. Some artists may say that art need not communicate, but I think art should communicate. If it's a language, well, you want people to understand your language. Peggy said that God wants art with all its teeth, so it has to be a sincere expression of yourself, what your feelings are.
Sister Helena's range of artistic expression is wide and varied. It includes both wood and stone sculptures, as well as oil paintings and intricate embroidery. By established art standards, her work is defined as representative of the primitivist movement, an artistic style reminiscent of tribal or early man cultures. Sister Helena, however, is not so quick to classify her creative approach.
I think my style is direct. It isn't always the same. You know, I'm influenced by what I see. So sometimes I like primitive art, but sometimes I would say my work is not primitive, but it's always a direct approach. And in order to be art, it has to be designed, no matter what style you use, whether it's primitive or whether it's naturalistic or what. If it has design and a deep feeling, it's art. If it doesn't, throw it out.
Sister Helena's prolific output has remained virtually unchanged since her youth. Her extraordinary vision was discovered when, as a young Franciscan novice in a Milwaukee convent, she took it upon herself to brighten the school blackboards with chalk drawings.
When I entered the order, I was 16, and I was sent out on mission for about 6 years because we were so short of teachers. But then I came home to make my novitiate, and we always had to go to bed before midnight mass. I asked if I could stay up because I didn't want to go to bed, and I said I'd like to put some drawings on the blackboards in different rooms. I must have used chalk. I don't know what I drew. But then the artist in the community went to Mother and said, "Who did those drawings?" And she said, "Oh, a little novice." So she said, "Well, I want her in the art room." And Mother said, "Well, I can't spare her now because we were short on teachers." But she said, "I'll educate her sometime." So that's how I got into art.
Sister Helena eventually went on to obtain a Master's of Arts degree from DePaul University. She then received additional training at the world-renowned Chicago Art Institute. From 1950 to 1971, she taught at Alverno College in Milwaukee, while also serving as the head of the art department for that university. Today, Sister Helena no longer teaches at Alverno College, but she still retains the distinguished title of Professor Emeritus. Many of Sister Helena's former students are quick to remember her remarkable talents as both a teacher and artist.
What I think I loved in her was the fact that she was such a realist. She dealt with reality, she worked with reality for what it was and tried to shape it or do something with it to make it better. There was always a positive tone that she had about her. So much of the artwork that she produced was reflected in scripture, she chose to work with scriptural readings. Her themes were religious themes.
I met Sister Helena as my freshman art teacher at Alvernia High School, and the moment I got into Helena's class, I think my life changed because of her life was it was a special model for all of the women who were in her classes, or girls at that point. She was a continual inspiration to all of us because of her love of life, her love of beauty, her creative dimension. She was forever creating while she was teaching us. And there was something just very special about her person. And I guess that was what I discovered later, that deep God life that is in her that radiated out in who she was and in what she was producing.
I get inspired by, quotes from the Bible. I use the Bible a lot. I also get inspired by seeing other people's work. Art breeds art. And you have to look at what others do too to keep alive. I think traveling is a great inspiration for artists. I know when I was in Guatemala, I was very interested in the people, their costumes. So when I came back from there, I did a lot of paintings from the markets in Guatemala, Chichicastenango and others. And the dress of the people was a great inspiration to me. When I was in Arizona, I saw the desert in bloom the first time. I always thought of a desert as just a dull place. And when I saw the desert in bloom, well, I was really excited. And I came back and I made painting after painting about the desert. So you get inspirations in various ways.
Sister Helena's inspiration is also motivated by a deep faith that has given her a positive outlook as well as the strength to continue creating.
I have a happy attitude toward living. As I said before, we're created in the image and likeness of God, and all our energy comes from the Lord. And so if I feel kind of, not feel like doing very much, I say, Lord, now I need your energy. And I get it. He said, if you ask for anything, you get it, and I believe that. I got faith.
Sister Helena's prolific output has enriched our culture with artistic treasures both striking and powerful, yet remarkably sensitive at the same time. She has often been asked how long she plans to continue creating, which is a question Sister Helena herself has pondered.
Well, when I spoke to my spiritual directors, I think everyone said I should keep on working. I spend a lot of time in prayer, but they asked me not to cut my time short unless it would be too draining, because they said, well, your work is a prayer.
Amazing.
88 years young.
Amazing.
And I can't even get the crayon inside the lines in the coloring book.
The woman is, what can we say about her? I mean, she's got her faith, she has her talent, and then the physical stamina to do what she does, with the chiseling and the whole, she's amazing. It's wonderful. And you know who else is wonderful? Al Maslick. Father Al, I think a star is born. Well,
until next week, it's time to go. The clock on the wall says it's time to wrap it up. For Reel to Reel, I'm Paul Pirello.
And I'm Pat Shelton, and we hope you'll be with us again next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We welcome your comments, suggestions, and donations and encourage you to write us at Reel to Reel, St. Charles Seminary, 1000 East Wynwood Road, Overbrook, PA 19096, or call us during regular business hours at 668-9842. Set materials for Reel to Reel provided by Tague Lumber Incorporated, serving the Delaware Valley for over 75 years.